Hi everyone, this is my final video for my time in Europe, and I will be discussing my overall journey and how my hour-long assignments were beneficial to my experience. So the three specific challenges that I did during my stay were observing the Anne Frank house, talking to a man from the Netherlands, and having a one-on-one conversation with a teacher and Dutch-speaking student in the primary school I visited with two of my classmates. So my first task in Amsterdam and our time spent was in Amsterdam and our time spent observing the Anne Frank house, and this was a fascinating and enlightening activity. I would highly recommend it to next year's LTCE group if it happens to not be in the group curriculum, because I learned more than I thought I would from this visit, and it really gives you the actual feel of what it's like to be in hiding and the traumatic struggles of the Holocaust. So I would also suggest to future LTCE participants to be aware of your surroundings. So I was able to see the tripping stones, which are stones on the sidewalk in front of apartments and homes where people lived who were taken to concentration camps. So although our instructors pointed out things like this to us, I would recommend being aware of history and the culture around you. So this ties into my global competency goals of being aware and mindful of the country that I am in. While in the Netherlands, it is also very important to be mindful of the bike culture and watch the bike lanes. So this fits into my inquiry about the bike culture, something not so much used in the US. It was a large adjustment, but a very interesting one to research and get to see in person. So to continue, my conversation with the Dutchman was especially helpful because I was able to learn about the Netherlands culture in more depth. So since he was around my age, it was easier to relate to as well. I was able to talk about things like music, student life, and his questions about our tuition rates in America. So I would highly recommend this as well to next year's LTCE group. Try to find someone in our generation to talk to, because it's especially helpful to compare and contrast things back to the US. I would not recommend talking to someone older unless you're interested in the history and things, the history of the place that you're exploring. Overall, though, I would definitely suggest talking one-on-one with someone who grew up in the area you're visiting, because it really gives you more knowledge about different cultures, and which certainly related back to my global competency goals, because it is important to not be afraid to branch out to other people who are approachable, because it just so happens that they may want to learn more about life in the US as well. And my final hour-long challenge was a conversation with a primary school teacher and some of her Dutch-speaking students. So this was a great challenge because it was eye-opening to their different ways to keep track of students' progress, such as taking pictures of the children's activities and keeping them in a book. I would recommend to future LTCE students to leading you to talk to not only English-speaking students. So one of my global competency goals was to not limit myself and explore these new cultures from mine. So talking to the Dutch-speaking students fulfilled this goal, although it was difficult for me to do. So participating in other cultures was something I did not that I did, but I could have done more of. So I do not think this competency goal was fully met. It can definitely be a challenge for everyone when you are so used to your way of life in America and doing things certain ways. So all of my global closer observations abroad will be an essential part of, as I work with people as a future occupational therapist. It is certainly a career path where being mindful of cultural differences in backgrounds is crucial, and I know acceptance in the classroom is a huge thing. Many of my peers who are studying to become teachers are taking away from this trip. I think as an OT, this is an important takeaway as well, since I will be working closely with all different individuals with different backgrounds and different problems. And among my 3-hour alone tasks, a similar theme I've seen reappear is the understanding of new cultures and becoming culturally aware of my surroundings. So I found myself being more and more open to exploring as each challenge presented itself to me along the way. So these tasks were unique in their own ways, and I learned diverse things from each task, but they connected in that I expand my knowledge on culture and so many new ways of life abroad. So thank you, and this was overall a very great experience for me to become way more culturally competent and aware of all these different backgrounds that people come from, and since we're so used to ways in the US. So thank you for listening.